quick video about Private Travis King, who was returned to the U.S. after fleeing to North Korea. Private King got into trouble when he was stationed over in South Korea with the U.S. forces. I don't know what happened, but he was supposed to go back to Houston to face further discipline and probably be kicked out of the Army, who knows. But the MPs who brought him to the airport did not watch and wait for him to get on the plane. So when they went away, he slipped away. He signed up for a tour to go to JSA, Joint Security Area, which is the village up on the border of South Korea and North Korea on the DMZ. Got there with a bunch of tourists, slipped away across the border, and the North Koreans picked him up, hauled him away in a van, and he's been their guest ever since. Now, they figured out quickly that he had very little value to the North because he was just a private, didn't really know a lot, couldn't exploit him too much. To my knowledge, he was never used in any leaflets or broadcasts or audio recordings or video or anything. He just was held. And we don't know much more than that. The Swedes sent a team to bring him back over the border. Why the Swedes? Well, they are part of the UN command that's been in place since the end of the Korean War. They are seen as neutral arbiters, which is interesting because they just joined NATO, or they're going to join NATO, which kind of fritters away at their neutrality a bit. I'm a little surprised they wanted to do that, but they might have done so under the promises of some more military support. I'm not sure they really need it, or more likely some kind of economic disadvantage looming over their head. That's usually how the U.S. operates. Anyway, the Swedes sent a team. They brought him across the border, and they handed him over to the Americans, who whisked him away to Houston to face, first, some personnel recovery actions, make sure his head's in the right place, and medical treatment, and then potentially, maybe, further punishment, or who knows, they might just quietly discharge him. Now, does he have prisoner status in terms of a POW? Technically, yes, he should, because North Korea is the adversary. Others who've been captured briefly, like Bobby Hall in the mid-1990s when I was over there. Just before I got there, Bobby Hall was a warrant officer pilot whose helicopter got shot down. They killed his co-pilot in the process. Bobby Hall was kept prisoner for I forget how long. They returned him. He was a POW. I don't know if he got the medal. He probably did. Now, a guy who runs over there deliberately, does he get the medal? I don't know. It sounds a little awkward. I don't know why they would award somebody that. I mean, strictly technically, he is, but he's in effect deserting, so probably not. But anyway, he's facing some personnel recovery, which is going to be interesting because he's never been through any kind of training on how to be a prisoner, unlike a pilot or a special operations person who would have that kind of mindset and preparation as to what to expect. So following that, he'll be kicked out. We don't know what character discharge he's going to get. But the news, there really wasn't a whole lot to it. Why would Pyongyang just release him suddenly like that? Abruptly announced Wednesday to expel him. Expel's a good word for it. They expelled him. Now, why do that? Well, we can talk about that, but I think it makes them look like the good guys. They didn't exploit that he alleged some racial problems in the Army. They didn't try to make it look like America is, racially divided. They didn't do any of that. They just wanted to be the good guys and let him go and let the incident speak for itself. Now, he gets there, he confesses that he illegally intruded to the territory of DPERC, and he harbored ill feeling against the inhuman treatment and racial discrimination within the U.S. Army, disillusioned about the unequal U.S. society. Well, I can bet that after the first 15 minutes of being in North Korea, he experienced what an unequal society is like. And he might also have some interesting reflections on race, because everybody is Korean in the North and mostly in the South. The word that the Koreans use for black person is huginsaram, and it literally translates into dirt people. I don't know if that's their only word, but that's the word that was used commonly. It wasn't a derogatory term. It was just how it developed. Maybe they've changed. I don't know, but they're an interesting lot, the North Koreans. So they probably didn't have much understanding of what he was talking about, but they did understand that there's some talk like that going on back in the U.S. So why, rather than play into that, why look like the bad guys? Let's just let him go. So they did that. And that might have been the right move. And personnel recovery, usually they focus on this is the field manual on this, on going over and getting the guy out of there. And they didn't have to do that. This is mostly the latter part, how to ensure that the post-recovery goes well. It doesn't really go into this too much here, Joint Personnel Recovery Center. But part of the prep for that is being ready for it. And that's SEER school. The pilots go through that training. It's survival, escape, resistance education. I've been through this. It's a real deal. They really put you through it, but you learn a lot. It's one of the best schools I've ever been to. I don't know if it's still operated the same way. I sure hope so. I hate to say it, but it's probably been watered down somewhat. It already was for the females. It's not the same. It's good, but it's not the same. And at the end of the course, I lost about 11 pounds in 10 days. So yeah, you really do go through some food deprivation, sleep deprivation, interrogation training. I don't want to get too much into it. I'm not sure how much that might be hush hush, but the point is he did not get any of this training. He was just a basic trainee. So hopefully he will recover okay and whatever they've got set up for him. Civilians do this too. Brittany Griner, when she was brought back, not SEER school, but they do personal recovery. She was brought back and she went through some kind of recovery. And even after the school, by the way, after we got done with this, they kept us around for a few hours to make sure our heads were in the right place. Because you're in sync, you're in it, you're focused, you are acting like a prisoner. And they don't want to just release you the second the class is over and send you home and have somebody react out of character. So they kept us there for a little while to sort of detune us and de-stress us. And that was only after a few days. So I think whatever Travis King goes through, they're going to really make sure his mind is in the right place. They don't want to release him and then have something bad happen. So keep an eye on that. Now, why North Korea doing this? These guys want a three-way partnership. Russia, China, North Korea, they've already sort of got that. The Chinese don't get along as well with the North Koreans as the Russians do. But that said, this is why Russia's important in that area. They get along with just about everybody. And the last thing the U.S. wants to see is the South Koreans and the North Koreans grow closer, or the Russians and the Chinese make deals with the South and then the Japanese. In other words, if this Western power, the U.S., can't keep its nose in there, has no reason to keep 27,000 troops on the peninsula and another, I don't know how many Marines and airmen and Navy people on Japan as supposedly a backup for the people on North Korea, on South Korea, then we start to lose the real reason to be there. In my opinion, we don't have a reason to be there. It was already questionable back when I was there, and what is there physically really isn't, in my opinion, all that substantial. Anyway, we were routinely at 75 to 80% strength. A lot of our equipment was broken. I know they could probably plus it up at the last minute, but it's there as a symbolic gesture to basically have a forward deployed something to move things into if something breaks out. I think that's old thinking. Do you think for a minute that if something does break out over there with China and North Korea, that any of them are going to let us bring more equipment over there to fight? I mean, forget it. You know, the days of World War II, mass convoys overseas, it's not happening. But that's a discussion for another day. Right now, all we know is Travis King is back. The U.S. Army looks a bit incompetent, and North Korea didn't have to say a word about it. All they had to do was hold him for a little while and let him go. So that's about all there is. Nothing to see here, folks, at least not yet. Thanks for watching.